Thanks for watching. This is my Element RC Enduro TrailWalker. This is the car that I unboxed in the last video that's actually published on the channel. If you want to check that out, I will make sure that there's a link to that video in the video description. In the unboxing video, I also said that I wanted to paint this thing up, and more importantly, I said that I wanted to bob it. The stock TrailWalker body comes around, I don't know, like here, it's like an inch longer. So the departure angle really isn't that great. So it also hung through like a tiny bit more. So there was like an additional ½ inch of LEXAN like hanging from the bottom. And I don't know, I just thought it looked a tiny bit clumsy, to put it like that. Now I haven't modified anything else to the truck apart from putting a Proline interior in there. But I did bob it. So this being such a square body, this is not a licensed body, but this being such a square body with such parallel lines, it makes it a perfect candidate for a bobbing job. You will see me cutting up the LEXAN and painting up the truck later on in this video, but for now I just want to explain briefly what I did over here. So I ended up cutting about ½ inch, a bit over ½ inch from the top of the bed, just so I could move the tailgate over the bed and still have some sort of structural integrity, to put it like that. I ended up cutting an inch out of the top of the bed rail, so that's what you see over here. Now by doing that and by making like a straight cut down in the main section of the body, I ended up having a lip on the back section of the body, so that actually continues a tiny bit behind this quarter panel over here. And it also gives me a tiny bit of surface to eventually glue everything together. So I use some E6000 glue. You can also use shoe glue to put everything back together once it was painted. When you make these cuts, the most important thing, since it is LEXAN, you can't use any putty or stuff like that. So the most important thing that you actually need to realize is what you're cutting, and that those lines, that they do not distort the overall shape of the body. So you want to choose a couple of lines that allow you to like slide stuff in without having to move up or down all that much. I hope that makes sense. I will make sure that you see some close-ups of what I did over here, just so you have a good idea of what it takes. And that is really not that intimidating to take on a job like this. I also wanted to have the back side here of those bed rails. I wanted to have that intact, so it could actually look like it was meant to be this way. Another thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to create a T-top or a Targa roof, just so you have a tiny bit more to look at once that interior is in and all painted. So I cut two sections out of the top of the roof. I also cut the complete back side out of the cab, and I cut a big chunk out of the bed. So you see those two sections over here. All of this stuff is really not that hard. The only thing you need to do is mark it up correctly. Make sure that you are very confident in making your cuts. So you score the LEXAN and you just sort of like start wiggling it around, and eventually you can break it away. Use some good sanding paper. So I use these Protoform sanding blocks, sanding drums, all that stuff. Use that to take away all the burrs and make sure that you have a nice clean surface to work on before you eventually wash the body out and prep it for paint. I wanted to have a 4-seater, so I took out a large chunk of that bed. I did keep in mind that I still wanted to mount that roll bar, so all the mounting points for the roll bar were still intact. This Proline interior is originally for, I'm not even sure, I think for the 4Runner or something. I'll make sure that there's a link to this interior in the video description box. Painting this interior up, you immediately run into, I think, a couple of issues when you want to have like a tan color or whatnot. Just because to me it doesn't have those in PS colors yet. Hopefully the future will bring a few of those colors to the market, because I know that there's a big demand for them. Not in the last place of myself. So what I ended up doing is I cut a clear overspray film on top of the interior after I painted the backside black. Painted that with a PS white just as like a base coat, and then after you have painted it with a PS, you can also use like a PS 55, like a flat clear, just so you have like a tiny bit of like a primer that bites into the surface of the LEXAN. But after that you can use any type of TS color. So keep that in mind. You have like a huge liberty when it comes to using colors from the TS range of Tamiya. You can even use some of those XF paints anything will stick to it as long as it is primed with PS, and especially seeing that it says an interior panel, won't get a lot of abuse. It will stick in there perfectly. Just allow it to cure a tiny bit longer because it doesn't cure as fast as, for example, a PS paint from Tamiya. The outside, well, you know, like always, just make sure that your hands are clean, make sure that your surface is clean. Take your time masking it up. Here, of course, this being an already pre-painted body and me using the stock body for this project. You can't use the technique that I've explained a gazillion times where you print something out in reverse and stick it to the outside of the body. That doesn't work here. So you need to be like a tiny bit creative, get some ballpoints out, a few rulers, and just draw up your own logos. And I don't know, it doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but I do think that it makes it a lot more personal. Well, this is how my Element RC Enduro TrailWalker, still a big mouthful, how mine turned out. I hope you enjoyed the way that it looks. I also hope that this kind of inspires you to hack up your shit and just go see what's possible. You know, the worst case scenario is you need to put a different body on it. The only reason why I started to hack this up completely was that I wasn't too sure about the body to begin with. And in that scenario, it's not that big of a deal if it goes all wrong. So just make sure that you give it a go, see what's possible, have fun with it most of all, and make it personal. So I think this looks a lot different than it did right out of the box. And it's really, it will be really nice to have some fun with this thing on the trails. I will let you go to some of the footage right now of where I hacked it up, painted it, and made it look the way it looks. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments box. If you want to have discounts at Proline, for example, go check out Proline Racing website. Use the code HEMI10 or HemiStorm10. That way you get like a 10% discount on their full range of products. And of course, check out Element RC by also clicking the link in the video description box. I will move on to the next project. And well, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.
Let's go.